Okay, so I'm getting notes up. We are looking at another quiz at the end of next week. So next Friday, we will also have a quiz. Okay. And that means we're looking at a test on chapter P, and I'll put this online on August 29th. We're looking at a test on chapter P on August 29th. So that's like a week and a half. Week and a half, we got a test. So hopefully if we're not sure what's going on or we're a little lost or whatever, we're getting that figured out sooner than later. I'm here to help. I'm here to make sure that we do as good as we can. But a lot of this is review, so let's make sure we get all caught up pretty quick if we're feeling like that was a hard quiz, okay? Okay, we're getting to P4. This is Algebra 1 step. This is lines, linear equations. Can you remind me what's the equation of a line? Y equals mx plus b. And we're going to have actually a lot of formulas here, so I'm just going to write them all at the top. Y equals mx plus b. And if I was teaching this to you for the first time, I would tell you that m is what? Slope. Very good. And then that means that b is y-intercept. Very good. If you're like, I know that, I've been knowing that, then don't write it down. It's okay. These are your notes. But I do expect you to know that formula. Okay. That being said, how would I go about finding my slope? How would I find my m if I was given 2 points? Y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Good. Our biggest problem with that sometimes is we forget whether the x's or y's goes on top. If you remember when we first taught you slope, we taught you rise over run. Do you guys remember that? Rise is my y values because we're going up and down. Run is my x values because we're going left and right. Okay. So we'll start with those two formulas, and it looks like it tees us right up for number 1. Find the slope of AB. We plug and chug those points into our slope formula right here. Yeah. Perfect. Let's do it. Especially if you keep making mistakes or if you forget some things, definitely label your points. If you got it, then don't worry about it, but it would be embarrassing to mess up and not have labeled your points, right? So I label my points. I get m is equal to -1 minus 2 over 7 minus 3. And that's -3 over 4. So my slope is -3/4. Seems to make sense, right? Pretty straightforward. Let's look at the next one. Same idea. Am I moving too fast yet? Or are we all hanging in there? Okay, good. Label your points if needed. Go ahead and plug and chug. Solve 4 minus 4 over -7 minus 6, which gives me 0 over -13. Ooh, timeout. That one's a different one. Is that going to be 0 or is that undefined? 0. This one is 0. I had one of my students a few years ago taught me this cute little trick. She said O over K is good. 0 over anything is okay. And then a 0 in the bottom is an NO, no. So sometimes I remind myself that. Is it okay or is it NO? And the NO is the same thing as undefined, obviously. So since it's been a while, I wanted to remind you 0 on top is good. That's okay. It's just a slope of 0. It's a straight horizontal line. All right. Now the next part, it says find B so that the slope of AB is as indicated, okay? This is maybe something that you've done, maybe not, but I think it's something that we're going to be able to kind of figure out pretty easily. I still have my points x1, y1, x2, y2. But I actually do know my slope this time. So instead of saying m equals or slope equals, I'm going to say that 2/3 is equal, and then I'm going to set up my equation. Then I'll do y minus 2, 6 minus 3. Is this something you've done before? Okay, that's all right. The only reason it's different is now we're finding an x or a y instead of finding the slope. But we're going to still solve the same way. We have 2/3 equals y over or y minus 2 over 3. And then now we can actually solve by doing a little bit of cross multiplying. I get, and if you want to distribute it out carefully so you don't mess anything up, that's okay. I get 3y minus 6 equals 6. And then I add 6 to both sides. Don't get tripped up. Yesterday I said 6 plus 6 was 0. So as long as you don't do that, then you're having a better day than I did yesterday, right? And then we divide by 3 and we get y equals 4. And so that means if the points 3 comma 2 and 6 comma y, they give us the slope of 2/3. Now I see some of our brains working a little bit. If you notice a pattern here and you see a shortcut, you can take it. I see that right at that point, the denominators were the same, which means the numerators should equal each other, correct? Did anyone notice that? So if you were like, why did we cross multiply? I just know what y is going to be because if the bottoms are both 3, then the top has to equal 2. You could have just stopped right there and set y minus 2 equal to 2. However, it's not always that case, and you might trip yourself up if you try and think of too many shortcuts. However, you guys have so many tools in your math toolbox. If it's easier to see a pattern and just know how they connect, go forth and do that. That's totally fine. Our cross multiplying is kind of that other tool that we have in our toolbox. Both of them work, whatever works the best in your situation or whatever you see first. Let's see. Let's do the same idea for the next one. I'm going to label my points. And I'm going to set up and solve, and I get -3/8 equals -2 minus -8 over x minus 4. I'm going to do -2 minus -8 or plus 8 to get me 6. So now I've got -3/8 over 6 or equals 6 over x minus 4. Again, you may or may not find a pattern here. That's okay. I don't see it as obvious as I did last time, so I am just going to go ahead and cross multiply. One potential problem you might have is you have to pick where that negative goes. Is it going to go on top with the 3? Is it going to go on bottom with the 8? It cannot be in both places. So you got to pick one side or the other and put it there. So I'm just going to put it on top. That's fine with me. And I'm going to get, let's see, -3 times x minus 4 equals 8 times 6. I get -3x plus 12 equals 48. Then I'll minus my 12 from both sides. -3x equals 36, and then I divide by that -3, and I get x equals -12. So if my slope is -3 over 8, then my x had to have been -12. All right, we doing okay so far? I just have 2 problems I want to do with you. Does that sound good? We can do 2 more problems. Now this though brings up a new concept, a new equation. I've got point slope form. Do you guys remember point slope form? Let me start this way. Do you remember doing point slope form? Remember hearing those words? Does anyone remember what point slope form is? Not as many head nods. That's okay. Let me remind you. And I'm going to just put it at the top because these to me are all formulas that like I maybe already know or I need to know if I don't know. So I've given you guys a lot of formulas, but you already had a lot of formulas coming into me, okay? So point slope. And I may come over here and label this one slope intercept so I can remember when we just go to say the equation of the line, that is slope intercept. When we do point slope, I actually like using point slope a lot, and I can't decide if that's something that I like decided on my own or I just had teachers that use point slope all the time. That is going to be y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So like I was saying the other day, how Mrs. Ludington does things a little bit differently than me. The other math teachers may not use point slope that much. I, for some reason, really like point slope, and I will almost always use it if it's my preference. The reason I bring it up now is because these directions right here say write it in point slope form. So I want you to just leave it in that form. I don't want you to simplify. I don't want y by itself. I want it to be left as y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay. And so this first one is just a simple plug and chug. I'm going to take my points. I've got x1, I've got y1, I've got m, and I'm just going to put them where they go. Y and x always stay as variables, so I'm going to start with y. Y minus -2 equals m, which is 6, times x minus x1, which is also 6. The only thing I'm going to do to clean it up is make that y plus 2 instead of y minus -2. Other than that, I think it looks good. As tempted as you are to distribute and then move the 2 to the other side, you're done. If direction said point slope form, I'm in. So the last problem we're going to do today is just combine the 2 things we've done. We've found slope and then we've put things in point slope form. We're going to do those together. So go ahead, we'll find slope between those 2 points. And, which I will let you kind of do on your own. I don't know what I was gonna say. I thought I was gonna say something. I've got my M, and then does it matter if I use X1, Y1, or if I use X2, Y2? No, whichever point you want. I'm gonna be honest, I probably am gonna use X1, Y1, and again, it doesn't matter. Those are just smaller numbers, and they already are labeled X1, Y1, so it's gonna be a little bit simpler for when I plug in, because I'll just blindly do what it says.
Doesn't matter what you use.
Nope, just said that. Doesn't
Oh.
matter. It's okay. And I can make that a +2 instead of a minus and negative. All right, that's all we got through in alpha, so that's all I really need to get through with you guys. We've got a little bit more of this line stuff. I'm hoping to finish this. Ooh, I guess I'm just hoping to finish it next class. I was gonna say I hope to finish it and get into P5, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. So we'll just keep rocking and rolling. I think we're moving at a good pace. If you feel like working ahead on P4 homework, go for it. If you're like, no, I'm gonna take a little bit of time off, I've got other classes to do. Free. If you have a little bit of time, just find something kind of quiet to work on.